Okay, new strategy that I think could be really good in 3v3 Heatseeker. Essentially, it is just two midfielders, one here, and one offensive player. So we'll put him up here. And now it might not seem that different. Like it's basically just the same thing, but instead of a goalie, you have a second midfielder, right? Like it's not all that different. But I do think that the way you actually play well in these positions is something that people do not do currently and have not done before. There's been glimpses of parts of it, but not really in the way that I think this does it. So let's talk about offense first. Okay, so the offender's goal, they are either going to be do it. They're going to be every single time the ball is coming towards them. It coming towards the opponent's goal. They are going to be either closer to the midfield line, somewhere up here, maybe somewhere over here, someone over here, anywhere over there, or they will be somewhere close to the opponent's goal. If they are close to the midfield line, then they should be trying to put a redirect on target. That's what their goal should be. And what'll happen is if they're here, they'll be moving towards the net, going for the ball. If it doesn't work out, they land close to the net. So now they're close to the net, and that's the other situation they could be put in. If they're close to the net, their goal is to get a touch, is to be the first one to the ball, beat the midfielder to the ball, and just get a touch that goes off the backboard. Whether it be, starting out here, driving this way, hitting the ball into the corner, bounces here, comes across like that, or they just drive this way, get a skimmer little touch into the backboard, bounces off over here or something, whatever it may be, that's what they're trying to do. And once they do that, they should be, if they're trying to be first with the ball, they should be driving towards, their own half, basically in the direction of their own half, very quick, very fast, supersonic, max speed, trying to get there first. And so what'll end up happening is the momentum will carry them farther towards our own half. And based on their touch, whichever side the ball ends up on, that midfielder will move up and try and take a shot on net or something, or some kind of offensive play. And then that person will become the new player on offense, and the offender will become a midfielder again. And so it's a rotation essentially. They're rotating positions. So for example, use the one I've been going with so far. Yellow player is getting a pass. It's coming over here. They're driving as fast as they can, going this way, and they get a touch that just curves right here, and then bounces off the wall, and it's somewhere somewhere around here like that, and it's going this way right here. So that's the touch they get. So now the ball is generally in this area. So that means this blue player would then move up, going for the ball. Yellow player takes their spot, just like that. Now, if instead they either hit this ball and it wraps around over to here, or what can also happen is they hit the corner awkwardly and it bounces and goes across like this. Now this red player will be the one who comes up onto offense. But what's different is that this player is going this way. So instead of them just cutting across, this blue player would instead fill the red player's spot. And now it's, now it literally just looks like a complete rotation, like in like in soccer. It's actually like rotations in Heatseeker. So that's the idea when you're on offense. When you're on defense, I think so the offensive player, I think, can just go to here. They can just hover somewhere around here in midfield when their team is actually on defense, as in the ball isn't really leaving the blue half. And so that, they can get a touch around. And that puts them in the starting position that I mentioned at the beginning, where they're closer to midfield. And so now the next pass they get, they will try to score it and then end up back here again. And it kind of restarts the whole idea on offense. But so on defense, these are the important two players, obviously. So the reasons they're on the opposite sides is that's how you know who goes for the ball. So I'll use yellow since it's a different color. If the ball's curving around this way, obviously the blue player will stop the ball, and the red player will drive back here to back post. And then obviously goes the other way as well. Comes over here, red player stops it, blue player goes to back post, just like that. So that's how you handle those situations. And as the player driving back to defense, so the ball going this way, blue player stopping it. As this player right here, you want to, you want to have momentum as the ball is being touched. You don't want to be stationary when the ball is touched, because then you have less momentum to react with. So you want to be in a spot where if the shot does come, you can easily just turn like this and get the save. But if the shot is hit like around you, you would be able to drive up the backboard like this and get the ball if it comes over here, because that will eliminate more chances for the other team to put pressure on you if you do that. And that goes for both sides, obviously. Now, there's an obvious problem if the ball goes down the middle. What do you do when the ball goes down the middle? For this, I think you talk with your team. So, for example, if it was Hunter, Tavs, and Klexic, we use those three for the example. Hunter, Tavs, and Klexic. So if this is Hunter, this is Tavs. Well, one thing Hunter's known for is being incredibly fast. So maybe in this situation, they decide that Hunter should be the one who goes for the ball every time. If these two are paired, Hunter will go for the ball every time it goes down the middle, and Tavs will be the one who goes back to the opposite post to save a potential shot. Now, if we switch Tavs with Klexic, so now it's Hunter and Klexic, we know that Klexic doesn't play that much goalie, right? So maybe Klexic in this situation, he's the one who always goes for the ball if these two are paired. And then now Hunter would go to the net like this and defend the opposite post. And then for the last example, it would be, Tavs and Klexic, right? And so in this case, again, Klexic doesn't defend very much. So Klexic goes for the ball again. And Tavs is the one who goes back to net. And so that was a really long way of saying that Hunter will go for that's a really long way of saying Tavs will always go to net and Klexic will always go for the ball if it's in the middle. And then Hunter's the one that flip-flops based on who is midding with him. That's how it worked. The team would just talk together and decide who does what when paired with who. And so you just pick one of each will always defend and always go for the ball, and then the other person has to pay attention to who they're with and decide based on that. So that's how you handle a ball in the middle. And then let's see, there's kickoffs. So yellow player will be the offensive player, the player that's starting off as the offensive player. So after the kickoff happens, they are going to be up here, essentially. So that means the other two are the midfielders. So if the spawn is like this, with the yellow player here, blue player comes up, they will be the one hitting the ball. The red player will come up to about right here or something to receive the pass from the blue player, and the yellow player will book it downfield. Don't pre-jump, stay on the ground. Make sure you don't get bumped, whatever you have to do. And so the blue player will preferably hit this ball to the red player, and the red player will be able to get a touch before anyone on the other team can get here to contest it. That's what they want to do. We don't want it to be a risky kickoff. You want to time it properly so that the red player will be able to touch the ball before the other team can even get to him. And what they want to do, they're just passing it across, whether it be on the ground, slightly off the ground, really high in the air, just anything. And then the yellow player will try to score, read the pass, try to score. And the goal with this kickoff is not to try and score goals. It's just to keep the threat of a goal there so that the other team has to pay attention on the kickoffs. They have to play good defense, otherwise they might concede, and it's a free goal. Like, that's the plan. It's not to try and outplay the other, because the plan is to do this like every time. So even if they do catch on, they still have to pay attention, because it's still going to be threatening if they don't shut it down, and it's hard to get a counterattack off with it. So now if the yellow player is here in the middle, that means the two are on opposite sides, because this is how the spawns happen in 3v3. You have two options in this situation. It's the same thing. If they go this way, then the blue player will come down to pass the ball. Red player will go over here, do the touch. Same thing. Yellow player receives it up here, tries to score. And then if the yellow player goes the other way on the bottom, then the red player will come up and pass the ball. Blue player will be right here to pass it to the yellow player. Because you want the pass to be across. You don't want to pass it from the same side, because it's much easier to get a good cut on the ball and cut the ball up high into the air. Stuff like that. Much easier to shoot as well. And so then, obviously, with all of that, if the yellow player is on the bottom, they will just go down this way. Blue player will pass the ball. Red player will receive it up here. Pass it across. Just like that. And I think I've tried to think of counterplay to both the offense and the defense, and I couldn't think of anything that would be like just completely shut it down or anything like that. I couldn't think of anything that didn't leave options for the team using this strategy to counter it back while still using this strategy. So one quick example would be when we're on offense or whatever, when this team is has pressure on the opposing team. Say they recognize that this person's always jumping back, just getting a touch, they're not shooting it or anything. So say the midfielder stops going for the ball. Well, that's not necessarily good for them, because now if this team recognizes that the midfielder is no longer going for the ball, this offensive player can now instead, rush at the ball like this and then turn around and draw shot it, or take a shot, take their time, take a shot. Something like that makes it much more threatening. And even if you don't do that, you still do the same thing. It's not like it's a guaranteed goal for them. Sure, they defended you pretty well, but it's not like you still have your two mids here backing you up. And what it does is now this midfielder has to read the ball every time I touch it. So even if this player, rushes here, hits it all the way up into the top lip and it bounces down around, that midfielder needs to read this, because this player is still going to be coming and trying to score, and this player is still going to be rotating out. So it's still potentially threatening, even if they recognize what the goal is in this play. And then obviously there's maybe you just fake it. Like maybe the ball ends up close enough, maybe the ball's fast enough, ends up close enough to the net that you just fake it and it just goes in. Something like that could happen. You never know. And then the last thing is that this strategy, I think, will be very difficult, if not impossible, to play well with when the ball becomes fast, like when the ball gets faster. Because it makes it a lot harder to take shots in the midfield, because that's one of the big things, is that these two players are trying to take shots in the midfield. And when the ball is fast, you have less time to read it, and there's more momentum on the ball, so it's harder to get behind it and force it on targets. Not to mention, it makes it much... The midfielders are probably going to have to play further back in the first place so that they can actually reach the ball when it comes back to our half. So I think in that case, if it is too difficult, then you could just switch to a more conventional style when the ball gets to a certain speed. And that would probably be okay. Because you're trying to score before the ball gets too fast anyway. So if you switch back after that happens, then it's just a normal match. You go back to a normal strategy, what normally would happen, and then, the better team will score. And, normally when it's fast, like, either team could score. Like, you really don't know. It's just whoever gets that break. Because normally shots on max speed don't get saved. It's just whoever gets the shot off first, normally. But, yeah, I think this has a lot of potential to be very good. A very good winning strategy without losing, like, special moments that Heatseeker can bring, like a double tap in Heatseeker or a nice redirect. I think those situations will still happen. And I think that this strategy becomes so much better when you use comms, because let's go back to the offense situation here. So say this player, let's say, they're like really far back here, and the ball from the red player gets passed like really wide, like this or something. And this player's goal is to be the first to it, and they get a touch on it. So they're going this way. Even though they're going quite fast, they are going this way. And so they touch the ball, and it hits the lip right here, and it wraps around to this blue player. So now, this yellow player is going to end up somewhere over here, and this blue player is going to be moving forward to get this ball. So if you're in comms, this player, instead of rotating out like normal, they could move back a little bit towards here, call for a pass. The blue player can, the ball curves, so they pass it around like this. This yellow player then, while driving away, shoots the ball, goes to back post or something like this. This player's momentum carries them forward. This player's momentum carries them forward. And it's still the same thing. Doesn't break the rotation, but it's different. It's a change up that you can have with... I mean, obviously you can technically still do this without comms, but it'd be, be a lot harder, because if they stay here and the pass doesn't happen, that would probably make the rotation slower. But like this, it wouldn't make the rotation slower. And so I think there's a lot more potential with comms to do some change ups, to do something different, and to, obviously keep mistakes from happening more often, like double commits and all that.